Episode 1, people.
Yeah.
All right. So what are we going to say about this one? What's your intro to this? What are we going to do?
Well, I think the best is why did we pick this movie?
Okay. Yeah. Let's start there. You want to take that?
A Complete Unknown. We picked it because it's the first movie that you and I ever saw together in the movie theater.
We never saw another film in the movie theater. You might be right.
I don't think we ever went to a movie when we were in film school.
Unless it was that one theater on the 4th floor where we went to film school together. I won't mention the name of the theater, but we've seen some weird old silent films there back in 2001 to 2004.
Okay, yeah, we probably saw movies together in film school, in class. But I'm talking about like
that we decided to go see a movie together, 100%.
Yeah. Our friendship, like what is the beginning of our relationship and our friendship? And it's this movie, really, I think. I think like you could chart it back to film school, but it's like we're in a second chapter, which is interesting. Very Bob Dylan, actually. This is all going to tie together because I think A Complete Unknown to me is about change and about transformation and about rebirth and changing who you are, becoming new chapters of your life. And that's what this is for me and you. It's actually really kind of perfect.
So this is very meta. We're going meta on this one.
I think so, yeah.
I like this.
They don't chase clout, they just chase the lore. Dig scenes that the mainstream ignores, where light fights dark in a fabled war. Yeah, the truth gets told when the movie's born. I'm the break in the flicker, the cut in the edit, the blade through the credits, a frame they embedded. Light in the distance, persistence poetic. The dark is a prison, I brighten with aesthetic. No stunt doubles, I tumble through trap fights. The scripts in my soul, I control when my track spikes. Whisper in a reel, I reveal with the black light. The dark is a canvas that I carve with the flashlight. Call it a war cry, a cinematic spark, a puzzle in the shadows, a code of the art. It's Andrew and Greg and the legacy embarks. Our voices ignite and we light up the dark.
I made a movie and I sent it around to all my friends, and Greg was really one of the few people who had this incredible response, and you said, hey, we should be friends. Like, why are we not friends as adults?
Because you didn't make a short film for like 20 years.
Right.
So there was nothing to talk about with you because we only talk about movies. So the fact that you but it's funny, it's nice to know that you kind of did the first outreach there. That I kind of forgot that because we've been talking for the past like 4 months or so. And I forgot the initial spark to our reconnection of this friendship now in our, we're 40 now.
Yeah. Yeah, you said, hey, let's meet up and go see a movie together. And so we did, and this is the movie we picked. And the funny thing is, I really wanted to pick this as the first pick. I guess technically it's my pick. It's kind of starting off with my pick because I was the one that said to you, I want to do this movie. I think this is the perfect movie to start with. Because
But I think you're right. I'll consider it a joint.
Yeah, it is kind of like a joint pick.
Well,
then the next pick is your pick. So
okay, well then this is yours. Screw it.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm
not gonna let you pull back. And go like, well, actually, now I should get pick number 2 if we had.
No, it is like a joint pick, but I suggested it, and I thought, yeah, it's the perfect movie to start with because we met up, we saw the movie, and then I didn't get to talk to you about it after. And I'm the kind of person
that's a big
where
thing. We didn't.
Yeah.
I had to leave. So we had like 5 minutes of like going to the bathroom after the 3-hour movie, and then like, okay, it's nice to ride down the escalators at 14th Street in Manhattan and be like, okay, bye, I gotta go.
Yeah,
we
were trying to.
We haven't been able to talk about it.
We were trying to catch up like 20 years of life, in like 5 minutes, like you said, and try to squeeze in. Hey, what did you think of that movie?
Let's do it. And
I love talking about movies after I see them.
I want to pick Andrew's brain to this film, but where do you feel like we should start with this one?
There is something that I did want to say, which is I've been waiting for this movie my entire life. The Bob Dylan biopic. I'm waiting for that movie my whole life, right? As a Bob Dylan fan.
Here is no one else will be able to see this, but here's the original cassette tape that I had back in like 1995 or 6 of Highway 61 Revisited. I'm trying to look when they have. Do they have a date on the back of the manufacturing of this? No, they don't. But
it looks like an 80s cassette.
Yeah, it looks like an 80s cassette. I bought it in the 90s before I had a CD player, though. So that was
How old were you at the time?
I was in middle school, I think. It was before high school. High school, maybe freshman year, I started getting into Dylan a bit. And this was, 90s, 90, 96, 97, somewhere around there. Every other kid's listening to I don't know, whatever they're listening to. But I was like, you always listen to things 20 years before. It's weird now to think of like what are kids doing nowadays in 2025? Are they listening to like 2001 pop music and now that makes them cool? I don't know. But wasn't cool. I was just listening to like stuff that resonated with me. And I was like getting into running from watching like Without Limits and Prefontaine and whatever the fuck. I was watching, movies and I was like, oh, I'll get into this and I'll do this and I'll be my weird loner self. But I was listening to, Bob Dylan on my headset. And then I got into numerous other songs. Tambourine Man, Shelter from the Storm is still my favorite version favorite song of his. The version that I like is from the ending of Jerry Maguire.
Right. Okay. Wow. Shelter from the Storm.
Love Minus Zero over No Limit. I remember being on a rooftop with Christian, who you know, and I was watching, I think it was July 4th, and we were watching the sun go down, waiting for the fireworks to come, and we were listening to that. Lonesome Road of Hattie Carroll, like all of his things, they all bring me back to a certain time and place, but I remember when I heard them, my first recollection, of hearing Bob Dylan was going, this is weird. This sounds terrible. And then I had headphones on and I go, why did this harmonica just blow my ears out? And then I was just like, who would ever listen to this? I remember this being like my very first thought of listening to him in headphones. And I was like, this sincerely hurts my ears. But after I got through song one, I was like, okay, let me listen to song two. And I was like, I have never really heard something like this before. And I was like, what is this? Then this hypnotic pullback to feeling comfort came from listening to Bob Dylan. I remember my first initiation of it being like, this person can't sing and this harmonica hurts my ears. What the hell is this? That was my first introduction to him. And then I remember going very soon after that, I can't stop listening to enough of this. I'm super into it. How did I ever think this was bad? The majority of people who I spoke with in high school in those years, I'm like, oh, listen to this Bob Dylan song. Their first reaction was like, what is this? What is this thing? Why am I listening? But then when you meet other people who are like, oh, you're a Dylan fan. They're like, yeah, no, I am. You're like, oh no, you get it. You get it. You're into it. So that, at least that was my intro into Dylan. I wasn't a huge Timothée Chalamet fan prior to this movie. There was like the Call Me By Your Name or whatever. I'm like, okay, interesting. That nice person. Then I was like, oh, there's Dune, who I wasn't a big fan of. My dad liked the originals. My dad read the books, this and that. I kind of don't care about Spice. I don't care about the Blue Eyes. I don't care about Wonka. I was like, the guy from Wonka is going to be Bob Dylan. I was like, I'm not seeing this. I was like, they took the famous young kid who's now the hot new thing, who's a skinny little hot new thing, little white boy, and they're going, you're going to be Bob Dylan. And Hollywood's going to make some money by getting young girls to go buy Bob Dylan tickets. And that was my initial reaction to it. Then I saw the trailer and I went, oh shit, this could actually be good. And I saw who's tied to it. I go, all right, Mangold's tied to this. I go, this could be good. I was like, Logan.
The guy who did Walk the Line. Like, it makes perfect sense. I love Walk the Line. I'm like, let me see what he does with Bob Dylan.
So that made sense to you, but I hadn't seen Walk the Line.
Oh.
I had seen the trailers to Walk the Line, and I'd seen a couple of YouTube videos of Walk the Line. I was like, okay. I kind of skipped it.
Wow.
To be honest.
I love it. I love it. I think it's actually might be the best musical biopic ever made.
No, I've seen it since then.
Oh, you have?
We could do a whole. Yeah, no, I saw it since then. I'm talking about my initial
M. Night
reaction.
Shyamalan twist.
Oh, we could talk for 6 hours.
I was like, oh, he hasn't seen it.
Yeah, when I realized that they did all their, all their singing and he recorded this in a very specific way, and Mangold said, I learned that by being able to do it in Walk the Line. Then I said, oh, well, now I need to see Walk the Line. Even though I love Joaquin. Great, everything. For some reason, I skipped.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was going through something. I skipped that back in the day. But now it was nice being able to see it after seeing this.
Yeah.
And then having a different perspective on how he looked at like movie biopics. Looking at the movie, people who are first-time Dylan listeners, even if they haven't listened to Dylan and they're just Timothée Chalamet excited fans who go into watching this movie, they need to, as the director of this movie, you need to go, they need to get on the path of liking a Dylan song. How do we do that? And I find that director's approach and Mangold's approach into that is very interesting here. They go, okay, I'm going to present you the first time that you're hearing this is you're going to get Song to Woody, and we're going to play the entirety of this song, and we're going to play it in this way, and we're going to have slow push-ins to Timothée Chalamet to maybe get you into the fact that he's going to sing, and then we're going to give you into Woody Guthrie who's sitting here and Pete Seeger over here, but it's mostly between him and Woody. And again, forget the aspect of the fact that he wrote Song to Woody long after he'd met Woody, and he didn't meet Woody in a hospital. Timothée Chalamet had literally, because of COVID, like 5 years to learn how to play guitar and sing like Bob Dylan. I think he did a fantastic job. I don't want to bash him earlier of me saying anything bad. I think he got his mannerisms down. I think he sung like him fantastic. I don't think there's another actor who could do Bob Dylan of these years better than him. He floored the fuck out of me. What I was trying to say before was like, yeah, he wasn't accessible to me with Wonka or any of the other things that he had done prior to this. I was not like, I like this guy. When I heard that he was going to be playing Bob Dylan, I went, ugh. When I saw the movie, from the opening, I went, wow, okay, this is working. The big thing about Song to Woody, when that happened for me as a Dylan fan and the dolly into him holds and pushes into him, I was fucking floored. I literally sat there going like, oh, no. The rest of this movie is going to be fucking cake, and I'm in love with Timothée Chalamet. I was the biggest non-Timothée Chalamet fan. I couldn't give a fuck about him. The dolly in when he's singing Song to Woody, I went, you got me. You're Bob Dylan for the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
You got me. I'm in.
Yeah.
My respect from him went from you're Willy Wonka and I could give a fuck about you. Yes, run around, do your things. Wonderful. And then I go, oh yeah, you're going to play Bob Dylan? Really? And then you do it, and I go, there's nobody better who could have done that.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to when he did Song to Woody in that opening scene, this is before I knew that how much time he took or this and that. Prior to that scene in the movie, I go, okay, this is going good. But when, hey, Woody Guthrie, I wrote you a song. And I literally, my jaw dropped, and I went, oh, okay, I'm going to shut the fuck up. And I go, this kid is fucking murder. Like on an actor level, you look at him and you go, there is not one iota, one bit of an ounce of this person not giving 100% of their performance in this moment. And I go, this kid's got me. And you grab me by the fucking throat and you're pulling me through. And I'm like, for the rest of this movie, you are Bob Dylan. And I'm there and I'm moving through.
I also love the cut to Woody Guthrie's face when he says, not many men have done the things that you've done. And it cuts to Woody, and the scene has this beautiful like elevation to it where you feel Woody's feeling of like, wow, this young kid is coming in and he's honoring me. He's giving me like this respect. And you feel the energy of like, this young kid, he's not just this like talented, arrogant kid. There's something deep and profound about his point of view. He sees the truth, right? He's this truth seer, and he reflects it back to Woody like, Woody, you have been carrying the baton of what we're doing. You know, you were the originator, like you're the OG, right? As they said, right?
Yeah.
And
then he's going, don't worry, I'm gonna take it over and I'm gonna run it into the fucking ground.
That's what's so incredible.
That's the Andrew viewpoint on this movie that you came out of this movie with. That I hadn't fully looked at it in that way, not of saying that was Bob Dylan's version of what happened here, because up for debate, but that was the movie's viewpoint, was Bob Dylan's going, I will take that baton and I will completely destroy it, which is why that last scene of him going, I'm holding the harmonica and we're here together and I'm looking at you going, yeah,
Yeah.
I destroyed all of this
Yeah.
because I ran
Yeah.
into the ground, but I have respect for you.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna ride off
Yeah.
into the distance, and after we cut to black, I'm gonna be in a maybe a motorcycle crash.
Yeah. Yeah, it uses Woody as this kind of symbol of like the change of the culture. And, it starts off the meeting of Woody is he says, they ask him, Pete asks him, why are you here? He says, I don't know, maybe catch a spark. It's like something, a fire, right? The fire that's going to burn it down. This is the spark. This is the inciting incident of the movie. And then it's mirrored at the end, and the movie has this really beautiful like mirror kind of structure where I noticed something about the film that it starts with him riding in a car, and then it ends, the last shot is him riding on a motorcycle. So the contrast of at the beginning of the film, someone else is in the driver's seat.
And he's in the back.
He's
Yeah.
in the back seat. He's the complete unknown. He is truly unknown. He's a nobody. And he's driven into town in someone else's car, and he's not in control. And then at the end of the film, that last shot is like, not only is it not a car, it's a motorcycle. It's a seat for one, right? He is singular. Like he is now in the driver's seat. He is in control of his destiny, and he is driving toward the next version of himself. I feel like I wrote here, the film is about identity and transformation. I think that, Dylan, he is an agent of change. He's this change agent. And he comes in and he's like a tornado. He just completely changes everything around him, and he's this unstoppable force. And that comes over and over again in the film in such an interesting way. And I think the title to me is so important in this movie. I realized how interesting the title is because it's a complete unknown. It's like, who is he? Right? Who is this guy? And so there's this fascinating, in the movie, like Sylvie argues, she says, I don't even know who you are. Right? It's like, where do you come from? Like, you don't think your past defines you? Who are you? And he is like
People make up their past, they
right?
forget the rest.
Yeah.
I have a thing to rant off that. I think he's a complete unknown to himself. And I think what he's realizing is that you can act mysterious and you can act playful. And after getting a little bit of fame and a little bit of curiosity where people start asking him questions, he realized that, well, if I just define myself to these people, the mystery is gone. So he realized, I'm just going to keep the mystery going. And that whole thing about the carnival and this and that, and whatever the fuck, the more mysterious and the more he's playing like a magician, the more he's going, I'll misdirect you here, I'll misdirect you there, I'll never answer your questions directly, I'll never do this. Now I'm building up a mythology around me. And then he realized kind of the more he lies and the more he bombasts and points people in the wrong direction, the more people start talking about him. And that's why one of the things of like his manager reading, at least in the movie, out of the newspaper, and then he gets interested going, oh wait, Alfred or Albert, what did they say about me? Same thing happens in Don't Look Now. He's reading in the newspaper going like, oh, Bob Dylan puffing away on a cigarette, he smokes 80 a day, and he's like reading a newspaper going like, wow, I'm glad I'm not me. Like he sees the ripples of going, I can create a mythological character, and I can fuck with the media in order to do that. And the more silly and the more strange, introverted I act, the more people lean in going, let me figure him out. So he goes, if I don't give you good answers and I give you ambiguity, he was the first. Yeah, if he wanted to get really viral with the title of this, he was the first Trump. He was the first person to realize I can manipulate the fuck out of the media by doing things in a certain way. And he goes, wait a minute, if I drop this little ripple here into the water, oh wait, all of them jump around like that? Oh, that's interesting. Isn't that funny? Now I'm going to go back home. I'm going to write my things. I'm going to get high. I'm going to hang out with Joan Baez. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. But wait, tomorrow, oh shit, I got to wake up and I got to do that thing? Let me go fuck with these people.
Yeah, he had this detachment. He had this like it is almost like an otherworldly detachment where he doesn't see this world as real. And he answers everything facetiously. I think I heard there was a quote that he gave later that said, I figured out with the press, you just lie to them, right? You just lie. Like, you just have fun. You just play. It doesn't matter. It's not serious. It's not real. It's like, to him, it was like he had that quality of like, the only thing that matters are the songs. It's like, that's it. That's all that matters. And everything else is just nonsense.
I 100% agree in that specific thing. And I think like he saw the ripples and he didn't take it seriously. He didn't walk out there going, okay, if I do this and I say, hey, here's what I mean by these songs and here's what I'm doing, they're going to have that. He goes, I could just fuck with you people. And you people will write more about me and you'll lean in. It's being the same thing about people who be quiet when somebody talks, they lean in. He was realizing, and the media was still at that time realizing what they were. And he was going, I'm realizing that I can manipulate you.
Yeah. Yeah. When he talks to Sylvie about the Now Voyager movie, they go on a date and they see the movie together. And then they talk about what the movie's about afterwards. And she says, Betty Davis went and found herself. And Dylan really takes offense to this. And he's like, she didn't find herself, right? She just changed. She just transformed into who she was meant to be at that time. That's the way he sees it. It's like his brain doesn't work the same as all the rest of us. Of course, we know that because we all can't write those songs. So there's something special about this guy. There's something so special. It's like he sees the world through the most unique eyes. And that's, I think, what we connect with so much about his music is that we experience those eyes through his songs and through the lyrics,
His social, awkward, talented musician aspects of being a human being who has certain types of social awkwardness, but is putting out an air of confidence and then has a turtle shell for anyone who asks him a question to go, hey, you are this, define yourself like this. Everyone around him is trying to define him. And he's just going, I don't want to be defined. I don't want to be defined. Deflect, 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 deflect. It's now what all celebrities do whenever they're asked a question about whatever. But he was maybe not the first that I know of to not be going, I'm accepting of your question. He would be going, I'm being playful with your question. And if I think you're putting me into a box, I'm going to go no to that. I'm going to do it very nicely. And now I'm going to move on to the next thing because I don't want to be placed into this area that you're doing. There's a great 56-minute long interview with him in black and white where he's in England somewhere or whatever, and people are asking him questions. And he's just sitting there evading them over and over and over. And they've got the raw footage on YouTube. And it's wonderful to kind of see that aspect of him just going like, okay, I'm going to go out here and be playful. Like he's accepting the fact this is what I've created. I've asked for this. You don't go out of your way to write a bunch of songs and then sit out there in front of a bunch of reporters. Like he's sitting there going like, shit, wait a minute. This is what I asked for.
Yeah. I thought when I was watching the film, I thought the sunglasses are like the symbol of that, of what you're talking about.
It's a good turning point.
Because the sunglasses are at once a super cool look, like super confident, and yet also the hiding behind. And so it becomes the shield. And there's one part in the film where someone punches him and they try to pull his glasses. Let me see your eyes, right? Seeing the eyes becomes important. So it's like he's allowing people to see his eyes. So he's hiding who he really is to the world. And he only dons the glasses when he becomes, more famous. It's part of his transformation.
Yeah. So are you looking at him as a superhero? Are you looking at aspects of that?
That's a fascinating way to put it. I never thought about that. But yeah, in the sense of there's a Dylan iconography, and it's like we're waiting for him to become his full Dylan self. And this is an origin story. This is, Batman Begins. This is how did Dylan become Dylan? Bob Dylan Begins.
This episode is brought to you by Dusty's Towing and Recovery, proudly serving the greater Pawnee County of Nebraska and the 2 paved roads that run through it. Whether your truck gave out in a dirt road in the middle of a cornfield or you accidentally drove your cousin's four-wheeler into a pond again, Dusty has you covered. Flat tires, dead batteries, mysterious rattling sounds that started after you hit something, but you're not sure what. Dusty doesn't judge. He just tows. And if you mention promo code Greg and Andrew, that's GREGANDANDREW. Now, just putting this out there, he should have done it the other way. The name of our podcast is Andrew and Greg. I told him that, but just so everyone knows, specifically the promo code, if you're in the Pawnee County area of Nebraska, just know that it's not the name of our podcast. It's GREGANDANDREW. You'll get a free can of Mr. Pibb while you wait for the winch. Dusty's Towing and Recovery. If you're stuck, we'll get you unstuck. Eventually, depending on what Dusty's doing. And then at the end of that, he wrote, truck door slams, faint dog bark, ad ends. So I think he's expecting us to put sound effects in there, but he's not paying us for this, so this is just kind of going out there into the void.
Okay.
If you guys sign up, the people from the greater Pawnee County of Nebraska, like it's a very small.
Right. This is a localized ad.
This is a localized ad. But if you guys would go out there and support us and do whatever, I will make sure that I make my next ad read for free for him, and we will do the truck door slam faint dog bark before the ad ends. But Dusty, we're seeing how this goes, and we thank you very much for supporting us as our first ad read copy sponsor.
Yeah. Thank you, Dusty, whoever that is. That leads me into the next thing that I want to talk about the movie, which I think is maybe the most interesting thing about the film. And that is that this movie essentially portrays Bob Dylan like he is God. I mean, it frames it that way. There are multiple moments. He even says, there's a line in the film during that scene that I mentioned earlier where Sylvie says to him, what do you think you're God, Bob? And he goes, how many times do I have to say this? Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's that also wonderful little moment which comes at a really key point, which we can talk about the structure too, because I love talking about structure.
I know.
Structure excites me.
I know you can't wait to get to that.
So it comes at a key point when he picks up the slide whistle from the merchant on the street, and
that's a great scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy goes, "You got kids?" And he goes, "Yeah, thousands of them." Right?
Yeah.
So the movie portrays it like he is otherworldly. He has something going on, right? This guy that we don't understand. Something magical, a complete unknown. You know, he is a complete unknown to us. The film does capture this, and it leans into this. It leans into him as, I wrote down Dylan as deity, as prophet, as vessel. He is a chosen one, you know, that essentially like God speaks to him. And when he plays his songs, I mean, where have you been, my blue-eyed son?
Ooh.
Where have you been,
my darling young one?
I don't know about other people, but I interpret that as a song to Jesus. It's like God talking to Jesus. You know, my blue-eyed son is Jesus. And he's asking Jesus, I sent you to earth, and what have you seen? Tell me, you know? And Jesus reports back and says, I've done all these things. I've looked at everything I've experienced. And Jesus has to, you know, and it's hard, and it's a hard rain's going to fall, right? And it's like, fall. Yeah, and at the time, people did say Dylan was like a prophet. You know, they certainly called him a poet.
Yeah, and he fought both those terms.
Yeah, and he would say no, no, no. But the funny thing is, see, that was part of the game.
Yeah,
because we all knew the answer was yes, because that's why he's able to say no.
Did you see the We Are the World documentary?
What is it?
So you know the song "We Are the World"?
Oh yeah. Did I see it?
Yeah. Do you see the documentary based upon that?
No, I didn't.
You should watch it because it's another time within that where I'll give you the premise. They said this is the only time that we can get all these celebrities in one place at one time because they have so many different agents and this and that. It would never be able to happen. So they did it after like one of the music award big shows, and they said, hey everyone, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna do this, we're gonna sing there, and they all spent like 16 hours in this one place.
Okay.
And then it became the documentary is great because it shows the wills of different people who were big personas within the music industry, all putting in their hey, we want this, hey, we want that, I want this, I want this. But as the night went on, everyone's falling off, going like, all right, we're getting tired, just fucking do it, get it done. But Dylan was one of the people who had, you know, a 3 or 4 lines that he had to sing throughout there. And you get to see him being very introverted and very scared about his voice and his singing during that. No, say what you're gonna say.
You know, I agree with you. He has this tremendous, like, it's like a shyness and a confidence simultaneously. And he's like a walking contradiction. I mean, this is why it's so interesting. This is why the movie's called A Complete Unknown. And yet I think part of the movie is about him, quote unquote, finding himself. So I think part of the title is ironic, where it's like he's this complete unknown, and yet he knows exactly who he is.
Yeah. I think a part of that awkwardness that he had is not worrying about, like, I'm going to cross my legs, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to bow my shoulders, I'm going to look down, and I'm not going to be Cary Grant. I'm not going to have shoulders back and go, I know how to answer every question here. I'm going to be like this. He didn't mind smoking a cigarette, leaning back and going, no, I'm going to lean in and say something here. And, oh, I don't know about this. And certain other people at that time period, the Beatles were doing that. The Doors ended up being weird and doing shit like that. But like, he had a certain thing where, whether it was the Doors, the Beatles, this and that, he was at the beginning of his career a one-man show.
I was curious, like, how do you feel about, like, I mean, Dylan's songs are clearly incredibly profound. They have a simplicity to them, and they have, yeah, this kind of magical quality. You know, do you think that, quote unquote, God, whatever that means, it doesn't have to mean the traditional version of like a religious God that you have in your head. It doesn't have to be that, but this idea of like a kind of energy, a presence, a spirit, some kind of otherworldly, some kind of magical thing. Do you think that, you know, that Bob Dylan was channeling something?
So I definitely, yeah, I'll answer that openly and honestly. I think that he thinks that he was during that time period, and maybe potentially there is, and maybe maybe Bob Dylan's songs prove that there is a God. But either way, I think the 2020 interview that he did, is the closest that you will ever get to him talking about that, where he's basically saying, like, I made a deal with the big man upstairs, and I made a deal with this, and he's going, now I don't know where those songs came from. They came from an untapped area.
Okay, ready? I'm gonna give you the exact interview. Here's what he said. Okay, Dylan says, I don't know how. This is a 2004 interview with Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes. Okay.
Yeah, this is the 2020 interview that I'm talking about.
That's the 2020 interview you're talking about. It was in 2004.
Yeah,
and he said,
it's the last really good interview that he ever made. And when he's talking to Ed Bradley, the only reason he gave that interview to Ed Bradley is because Ed Bradley was a very big, deep fan of his.
Okay. Well,
wait, are you reading the transcript? Have you not actually watched it?
No, I've watched the interview, but I'm reading it here for the audience.
I understand.
Dylan said, I don't know how I got to write those songs. And Bradley asked, what do you mean you don't know how? And Dylan says, well, those early songs were almost like magically written. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, the handmade blade, the child's balloon.
Yeah.
That's right. And he says, try to sit down and write something like that. There's a magic to that. And it's not a Siegfried and Roy kind of magic, you know? It's a different kind of a penetrating magic. And, you know, I did it at one time. And Bradley
I can't do it.
Yeah, and Bradley asks, you don't think you could do it today? He says, no. You can't do something forever. I did it once, and I can do other things now, but I can't do that. Bradley asked, why do you still do it? Why are you still out here? And Dylan says, well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I made a bargain with it a long time ago, you know, and I'm holding up my end. And Bradley asks, what was the bargain? And Dylan says, to get to where I am now. Bradley asks, should I ask who you made the bargain with? And Dylan kind of laughs and he says, you know, with the chief commander. And Bradley says, on this earth? And Dylan says, on this earth and in the world we can't see.
And in the next.
Yeah, it's in the world we can't see.
Yeah.
So when I first heard that, I thought, okay, I do think there's something kind of interesting going on here. And that's why I wanted to read it and get your opinion.
So you want my opinion? I think you're missing the most interesting aspect about that. Forget the magic trick that's being played about maybe I made a deal with the devil or God or whatever to be able to write these great things. I think that is the sleight of hand trick. The biggest thing that you miss is earlier on within that. This is the only time that I've ever been able to see him. Not only there's two more maybe in Don't Look Back, but it's one of the only times that he's able to brag about himself, but he's able to do it here in a very interesting way. He's able to go, yeah, the younger version of myself was fucking amazing, and I can't even do what that person could be able to do anymore. Now he's giving that over and going, yeah, isn't that guy fucking amazing? Because he's now sitting here in his later years going, shit, I can't do that. Shadow Blade, the Silver Spoon, the Handmaid's Lane, the Child's Bloom, eclipses both the sun and moon. And then in that documentary, or in that 2020 thing or whatever with Ed Bradley, they dissolve back to the black and white that zooms out in the D.A. Pennybaker. I remember that very well. I used to watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see. Interesting. So you interpret it more as like more Dylan myth making, where we said earlier that he actually he lies to the press.
I think he's able to look back on his former self in awe. Like all of us. He is now us looking back on him going, that's not me. How could I do that? Because I can't do it anymore. And that's what he's saying. And I think that has to do more with age and motivation, because his young 19-year-old self coming to New York doing all these things wanted to prove. I'm not Robert Zimmerman. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to show people I'm different. I'm going to redefine myself in so many different ways, and I'm going to prove to other people that I'm not Robert Zimmerman. I'm this new character that I've made. And then when he realized that he was able to trick everyone, he goes, shit, I tricked everyone. All right, I'm going to keep this going as long as I can. Fuck, now I'm going to redefine myself, and I'm going to keep doing that. And he goes, fuck, I've done this so long. And then he looks back at going, holy shit, look at all that shit I did. And he's like, I actually can't do that now. So what am I actually doing now? I'm just tricking people to think that I'm my former self. Because when I got to go see him, going back to Bob Dylan again. I was worried that I was never going to be able to see Bob Dylan in person. On October 24th, 2003, I went to Rochester, New York, and I got to see him on the Dylan's Rough and Rowdy Ways tour. And I got to watch him. I went there with my wife at the time, and we both got to see him. Now, she, as would be preparing for any other show, listened to all of his old stuff and all his, I'm going to go see Bob Dylan. And I was like, honey, you're in for a rude awakening, because he's not going to do what you want him to do when we get there. And we went there and we saw him. They put everyone's phones, as they do now, in little lock bags and whatever the fuck. And he played nothing but new shit. There was no tambourine man, no anything. And I sat there the whole time. From the first time he walked out and the first song he did, I go, oh, there's not going to be one song that she's going to know. And it was just all new, all everything. Like, no one's ever heard this stuff. This is what you're going to get. Like, I'm not going to do one throwback song. So she came out of that going like, why didn't he play one thing? I'm like, you don't get it. I'm like, it's Bob Dylan. Like, he's not going to do that. And I was like, you understand how satisfied I am that, like, he just played shit from, random songs from the 80s, one or two from the 90s, and then all new shit that you've never heard. And you could barely understand what he was saying. He's just like, I was just like, yep, I got to see Bob Dylan. There he is. He's right over there.
It's so Dylan. That's so Dylan.
That's what I loved about it, though. Like, that was his magic trick of going like, you know what?
Yeah.
You want something? I ain't giving it to you.
Okay. So that's interesting. So you take it more as like not quite at face value. You're like, you know what? He's a trickster. He's a chameleon. He's a shapeshifter. You can't really trust what he says. Like, maybe he said that. Maybe that's part of his myth. But maybe it's true. Maybe there is something, but maybe not, right? It doesn't really mean anything.
I could trust him to be him. That's what I like about it.
Well, what's interesting about the whole deity thing, though, is you said, well, he's a trickster. That was my paraphrasing of what you're saying. You're kind of like, I don't know if I really buy it, which I think is totally reasonable. The interesting thing, though, is the film itself does take that approach, right? Because he is saying, he is making little comments to himself like, yeah, I got thousands of children. So he's kind of like like he himself in the film, at least the character of Dylan in this movie, it is portrayed as if there is some kind of like mystical, like we don't know so what's going on with him, right? And he's kind of playful about it. So maybe you could say that the character in the film is being playful, like he's just messing around, but he whispers little things to himself, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know. So I thought that was an interesting approach for an actual movie to take, where they give like a little wink. Maybe it's also like the way the movie audience too sees Dylan too, is that's also a playful element that, we think of him this way. And so the movie's also reflecting that a little bit. It's almost like reflecting our own image of Dylan back at us.
I 100% agree with that. I also specifically think that I know it's hard to do, but we've talked about Dylan so long, and I think you're finally getting into the part where we're talking about the film. So I think within the context of the film, everyone around him has these expectations of him. And like he's discovering what he wants throughout the course of the film by being playful with certain people. Like even with her when he wakes up in the morning, he's like, your fucking shit looks like a fucking oil painting and this and that. He's looking at her with his head down, going like, how are you going to react to this? The way that people react to him, she's like, you're kind of an asshole, Bob. He's like, yeah, I guess. Like he's finding out he's also a character in his early 20s. Like he doesn't know how to navigate the world. And he's come to New York on his own, doing his own thing. So he's sitting there going like, how do I navigate this world? What are people going to do if I push the boundaries and push the barriers? Like it's kind of like a kid in 5th grade who sees a thing on a door going like staff only. You're not allowed to enter beyond this point. And he just walks in and goes, what happens if I open the door? And he just walks in and he goes, well, I wasn't killed. And then he comes back out and tells his friends, like, they're all like, wait, you walked through the door? And he's like, yeah, I did. Nothing happened. So he's just pushing the little boundaries to go, where is the point? And like that, I think within the context of the film, yes, within the context of life, but we'll narrow down the context of the film. His character's doing that wherever he goes, going like, how can I fuck with people? And then the more people tell him he's important and the more people base things around him going, hey, it's really important that you do this or you do that. He's going, yeah, but what if I don't?
Yeah.
Like that's the playful aspect of him that I think gets across in the entire film. People around him start acting serious and he picks up the
Right.
the little whistle. Like he's going, why is everyone getting so serious? There's no reason to be doing this.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny you said why so serious, because I almost think of him as like a joker. Like he is like like I said, like an agent. I called him an agent of change. You could call him an agent of chaos. He is almost in a weird way. He almost has this like dark underside where it's almost like he's a villain, where he's gonna ruin things for other people in a way, right? That the movie starts with, Pete Seeger's dream of he wants folk music to reach the masses. That's a big story point in this film. And then it ends with folk music is dead. Bob Dylan, this chaotic figure of transformation, has come in, he's taken over your genre, and then he killed it. And now he's moving on and you are left behind.
Okay.
Like he gets so upset in the film. There's one moment where he's sitting watching TV and they say about Johnny Cash on TV, oh, he transitioned to rock and roll, and Dylan goes like, ain't no transition, man, with that corny bullshit. They're trying to box him in, right? So he refuses to be boxed in. He refuses to ever be defined. He refuses to ever be stuck in the past. As Dylan finds himself more and more, Pete Seeger loses himself more and more. So the two are inverse mirrors of each other. Dylan rises over the course of the film. Seeger falls.
Okay. Yeah.
Dylan becomes stronger in his mind, more sure of who he is, more sure of his reality. Seeger loses himself more and becomes more questioning and unsure about who he is and what he believes. And it also draws a parallel between Bob and Johnny Cash, because Cash is doing what Dylan is doing. He's changing, he's transitioning, quote unquote, but he's already on that path. He's doing his own version of it. So he's true to himself. He's constantly changing. Dylan admires this. And so it draws a parallel between the two.
Okay.
And I wanted to say also that throughout the film, it's interesting that Cash is almost portrayed like a specter. Like he has this almost like a supernatural quality where he's always there to give Dylan advice when Dylan is in need, when he's at a crossroads. Cash is there to kind of give him guidance. And Cash is called the Man in Black. And so he has this kind of almost ghostly presence, this sort of specter-like presence where I thought you could even do like a beautiful mind twist and have it be that Cash never even existed in the movie, that he wasn't at the Newport Folk Festival. He existed only in Dylan's mind, to give him that guidance. It's like Dylan talking to himself. It's like he says what Dylan needs to hear at every point because Cash understands Dylan. Cash is doing exactly what Dylan is doing. And so the two are connected in that way.
This episode is brought to you by Hal Riggins Cold Reserve, proudly serving the greater Boundary County area of northern Idaho since 1997. With grocery prices climbing faster than a bureaucrat's salary, Hal is offering you something no big box store can: time. Here's how it works. You stock up. Ground beef, frozen corn, pork shoulder, off-brand waffles, whatever you can get your hands on. Bring it all to Hal. He stores it in a deep freeze, climate-controlled 5,800 square foot padlocked freezer completely offline until you decide it's time to thaw and re-enter society. Don't want digital tracking? Good. Hal only takes cash, gold, or deer antlers in decent condition. Mention promo code Andrew and Greg, and Hal will let you use one of his premium bins. Those are the ones closest to the generator and furthest from the back of the wall with the moisture issue. Hal Riggins Cold Reserve. When the grid falls, the meat won't. Oh, fails. Sorry, Hal. When the grid fails, the meat won't. And then Hal put in chest freezer, hum lingers, then a hard click as the compressor kicks in, followed by a gunshot, and then he has call-out note specifying shotgun sound effects. So specifically, that's the gun that Hal is looking for within his reads. Who knows, Hal? Who knows? So thank you again, Hal, and anybody who is over in that greater Boundary County area of northern Idaho, feel free to go on and go visit Hal.
I love the moment in the movie when he sings "The Times They Are A-Changin'."
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's done so well.
Yeah, that scene where Pete Seeger is like overcome with emotion, and it's like that's the pinnacle of folk music, that moment. Because everything from that moment on is going to be the destruction. The destruction has started. Like it just hit its peak. He had his moment. So that was his triumph.
And it's also intercutting with Sylvie, and that's definitely the end downfall of their fucking, he notices Joan is over here, and that's movie context, but still, it is the pinnacle.
That's true, that it kind of doubles as the moment of their destruction and downfall as well, because it's the moment where I think you can tell on her face is this feeling of like, he will never fully love me, because he's bigger than that. It's like his gift is for the world. It's not for me. He takes it away from me. He snatches the paper out of her hand. No, that's not for you to read. Like that's between me and the public. That's between me and humanity.
Weirdly, I think Sylvie inadvertently said something that Bob then, within the context of the film, Bob used later as venom towards Joan, which he did or did not know. So Sylvie in the diner says to him, yeah, where have all the flowers gone? It's not Shakespeare. Now, that echoes when he's there with Joan going, your songs sound like an oil painting at the dentist's office. So I think the criticism that Sylvie gave him in that, he internalized and then was able to find his own way to go, I'm going to use this as venom and test it out on Joan here. And I think his character in his bowed shoulders and back and the way he looks, he's just going, how is this person going to react when I say this? But the way that he says, your songs sound like an oil painting in a dentist's office, is almost the exact same thing that Sylvie said when she goes, where have all the flowers gone is not Shakespeare. She's criticizing him, and now the first time that we get to see him criticize somebody else is in that same type of way, going, your song sounded like an oil painting at the dentist's office.
Yeah. He comes in, he's like, I see him as like this change agent. He changes everything. He changes the women's lives. No matter what he does, he never stays in one place. And it's like these women, they can't ever even, that's part of the struggle too, is they can't keep him in one place. So he constantly changes. And I was going to say, I love the moment when he sings Times They Are Changing, because that's the pinnacle of folk. And then there's this hard cut, and it's 1965, and he walks out, and he's got the glasses.
It's a great Steadicam. It's a great Steadicam shot when he walks out.
He's got the glasses. He's got the longer hair. And I even saw his hair as like a symbol of like, his hair has grown more wild. His energy is radiating. He's growing. His power is growing. And that was a moment of transformation where it was like, he basically conquered folk music. He brought it to its pinnacle. And once you bring it to its pinnacle, what left do you have? You have nothing left to accomplish. And it's like, that's Dylan. His thing is, I do it to my utmost, and then I drop it, and I'm on to the next thing, because I'm constantly changing. And so that cut and that moment of him walking out, and he looks different and he feels different, and it's 1965. It's like, this is a new era. You're not looking at the same person anymore. And it's one of the moments of transformation in the film. And I think he continues to do that throughout the film.
The end of that, the end of that shot is when he gets the
and that's when he goes to the slide whistle. And I wanted to connect that with what you were saying, because I agree. It's almost like they take him so seriously. You're a prophet. You're like God. And his response is, I'm going to blow this whole thing up, and I'm going to make it into a joke. And I'm going to, he has this kind of running, almost like the Joker, funnily enough, like the Joker in The Dark Knight. He lies about his past. And he says, I was in the carnival. I learned these chords from a cowboy. And Joan Baez says, I don't think that's true. She kind of calls him on it. And she's like,
I see you for the little insecure boy that you are. That's basically what she's saying.
He also, that's when we first see him on the motorcycle. So that's like the midpoint where he transforms in the middle, and he acquires the motorcycle. That's when we first see him get on the motorcycle, and he drives away, and you're like, okay, there's been a change there, because now he is like more in control of who he is, because now he's going to become a contrarian, where he goes the other way. He goes against folk music, and that's the turning point. And it's like, that's when he acquires the motorcycle. So I noticed that this idea of like the car and the vehicle, it's almost like dream. There's like a dream logic.
Do you not think there's a little silly speed up? That's the only thing that happens when he's turning that corner to spin around. There's a little silly, like, let's make him speed up quicker.
Okay. No, I didn't notice that.
There's a little silly, like 1920s version of Charlie Chaplin going on when he's speeding around that little corner. Anyway, just tossing that out there in the universe. But yes, I didn't mean to undercut everything else you were saying. I'm saying I 100% agree.
Yeah. I wanted to say I love the cut from when he's singing. It's when he uses that slide whistle for the first time. And they're kind of laughing in the studio, and they're like, is this going to work? And he's, everybody's like, what the heck, is this a joke? What is he doing with this goofy noise? And they start playing the song, and it's like, woo, and he's like, God said to Abraham, kill me a son. And the lyrics are profound, and the song is, rocking. It's rhythmic.
So this is the second time you're bringing up something. Do you have tell me more about the religious perspective that you have.
Yeah. Well, clearly so many of Dylan's lyrics reference like the Bible, biblical things. They have a very...
But is he doing that to be a jokester?
I mean, I don't know.
Because he went from being, I was Jewish and then I wasn't, and now I'm back. There's the Adam Sandler version of that.
That's right.
Throughout this. Like, do you have a bigger arc of why you're bringing that up?
No. I was going to talk about just the cut, actually. I wasn't even going to talk about the song, but the fact that you sort of zeroed in on the song, when you look at Dylan's life and career and you look at the time that he came, I mean, I thought one of the most interesting moments of this film, which ties into the answer that I'm giving, is when there's the Cuban Missile Crisis and everybody's scared and they're running on the street, and then Joan Baez is trying to get a cab and she hears Dylan's voice from an underground club, and he's playing Masters of War, and he's condemning the government and the the ruling class. This is something Dylan did so much, is he would undercut the leaders and the rulers of our world.
He would fight against saying that he was doing that, though, when asked in interviews. Anyway,
of course, you have to say, yeah, exactly.
I 100% agree with you, but yes, just pointing that out.
And so, of course, it's a turning point for Joan Baez. Then she, sleeps with him. She's like attracted to him. She has this sort of, there's a magnetic sort of moment that happens and it pulls them together. It's almost like she's just so blown away by his talent or whatever. But there's also a transformational moment for society. I thought that the way they portrayed it in the film, again, with this idea of almost like Dylan as God, is almost like he ended the Cuban Missile Crisis. Because he sang that song, everybody realized how crazy this is, and it just had to go away, because you couldn't set off the bombs after that song, because it would be like, you proved him right. So he does almost have this like magical hand where the songs are so powerful, they can influence the course of history.
Okay. What I like about that, and then what I don't like about that is it's not what I don't like about your take, but what I'm saying is what I don't like about what the movie does and what movies can do is and go, okay, we're heightening the stakes. Now it's Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh my God. Now I'm singing Masters of War. Now we're going to get everyone's emotions up really high, and then, oh, it's okay to cheat on Sylvie. She's out of here. Within the context of the movie, his character is being a dick, going like, oh, world's gonna end. Now it's okay. Let me put my dick over here and cheat on Sylvie. Within the context of the film, not talking about being young 22-year-old Bob Dylan and this and that, and it's all a thing. But within the context of the film and the characters that they've set up, they're going, oh, stakes rose. What are you going to do here? You're going to fuck Joan Baez and fuck Sylvie.
Yeah.
And you're going to pretend you know how to make coffee when Sylvie comes back into town.
I got the feeling like their relationship has that parallel to the movie Now Voyager with Bette Davis. And Dylan says later in the film, when they go to the Newport Festival, he says, well, but those two got back together later in life. He says that to Sylvie. He's like, they didn't break up. They got back together later in life. The movie was sort of giving you this little hint of there's hope for this relationship. Because the relationship with Sylvie, to me, is almost like more of the stabilizing relationship in his life. He goes to her when he's wounded, his cheek is hurt. She's the one he goes to. She has that kind of motherly sort of figure, right?
She is an amalgamation.
Okay,
She's the picture of the girl on the front of Freewheelin' when they're walking. Yeah, that's
the Freewheelin' album.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that I was gonna go back to the Highway 61 song when they show it in the movie and it cuts. There's an incredible cut that I wanted to draw attention to, because
what's the time code?
It shows him singing Highway 61 Revisited, and it's like this super modern, cool song, and it has this incredible energy. And then it does a hard cut to Pete Seeger singing on his like public access television show.
Yes.
It's like this super old-timey sounding song.
Black and white, 4x3, yeah.
And it's just like, boom, hard cut, and it's like, that becomes the conflict of the film, like in that cut. Because it's the old and the new, and it becomes this push and pull of like, which one's going to win? What's going to happen? And then that drives the entire rest of the movie. And Pete, in that scene, he says, oh, Bobby couldn't make it tonight. Like, it's almost like he's going in another direction. He's not here anymore. But then he shows up. He does come, right, later. And he kind of comes in the middle of the session. And I got this kind of cool feeling like, yeah, Dylan, he's sort of stepping away from folk. He's going in a new direction, but he hasn't left yet. He still has one foot in the folk world. He's still considered a folk singer, and like the greatest folk singer.
Even though he would not consider himself a folk singer.
Right, of course. I thought the way it's in the movie, it's like his work in folk music is not done yet. he still has to destroy folk music. So it's like he shows up kind of as the rock star, and it's like that process has begun and that conflict has begun. Of then it
Do you
cuts to,
think, do you
yeah.
think within the context of the movie at that point that he thought his character, not him as Bob Dylan, but do you think that his character had the foresight to think my motivation at this point is to destroy folk music?
I think you could clearly tell that he was like Pete Seeger says it in the movie. He says, I could tell the direction you're going in. You know, I could tell it from the last record, right? And I think that's clearly the case is the moment he steps out
But
of,
did Pete Seeger think in that moment, I can tell you're leaving us, or I can tell that you're going to destroy us? Because those are two different things. If he just left, if he just
yeah,
left, it
yeah,
would mean that
yeah.
folk wouldn't go up higher than where it was. But what you're saying about the ending of the movie is Bob stayed around to go, fuck you. I'm going to ensure the fact that I destroy it, which is not the historical truth, but within the context of the movie truth. That's the theme of the film.
The reason I say destroy it is because he came into folk music and he became the chosen one, the savior of folk. He defined what folk is at that time, right? He was the face, the symbol of folk. The problem is that people think of you as one thing. They want you to be the same, you know? Like he says in the movie, if it were up to them, I'd be singing Blowing in the Wind the rest of my life.
Which shows that at least his character within there did not, in the end, after getting fame and money and whatever the fuck to a certain degree, did not really care. His character did not really care about those around him at that point. It became about his artistic expression of being like, I want to be able to do what I want to do, and I'm not sitting here looking for your pat on the back any longer.
Yeah, it's like he had to destroy folk in the sense of if he didn't, he'd be locked within it for the rest. He'd be defined by that for the rest of his life. So it's like, in order for him to grow, he was so associated with folk music. In order for him to grow, he had to break out of the shell, you know. And when you break the shell's broken, it's destroyed. It's like you can't rebuild it, you know. So, you know, folk music lost its cultural relevance after Bob Dylan stopped playing folk music.
Or was he potentially the last gasp of folk music? Like,
Yeah, he was the pinnacle.
Without him, folk music would have, it was going on its way no matter what. Like the Beatles, everybody else at that time, like folk music. If Bob Dylan never existed, it's not like in 2025 we'd all be sitting here and the number one thing on the charts would be folk music. It was his entry point on the way in. He loved it. It's kind of like you and I like loving Kubrick in film school, but then going, we need to move on past holding static shots and doing certain things. Like we just need to move on, except we didn't have the high powered point of perspective of everyone in the entire world was looking at Andrew in 2001 going, oh my God, you are a genius. Anything that you do, you are the new embodiment of Kubrick, and anything that you do will ripple throughout the world. We didn't have to have that version on us. You're like, oh, I had my time with Kubrick. I like these certain things. I did these certain things. And then you're like, I was able to quietly move on my style to do something else. But if you had everyone on planet Earth looking at you going, no, that's who you are. You need to carry the trophy and move forward. You would go, oh my God, I don't want to wear this backpack. I want to do other things. And that's kind of what Dylan, that's kind of his journey, it seems like.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to highlight about that is how the movie uses the music, not only Dylan's music, but all of the background songs too. If you notice, it's just perfectly, beautifully tells the story. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's like everything just has the perfect energy, whether it's the lyrics or whatever it is. I wrote down a few, like when he comes in. So we get that finale sequence, right? Which is incredible. The Newport Folk Festival, 1965. Is Dylan going to quote unquote go electric? They totally set it up. It's the finale of the movie, right? He's walking on toward the stage and his buddy asks him, electric or acoustic, you know? It's like, and it's like, yep,
Yeah,
okay,
not
that's
answering.
that's the question, right? And when he walks to the stage, they're playing a song called "Let Your Hammer Ring," and I thought, it's like a
Oh,
slave,
they're throwing the
yeah,
sledgehammers.
like with the
Yeah,
hammers and the slave chant. And
yeah.
I thought
And
this is like,
Maggie's farm comes
yes,
on, and
and then
he's
he
yeah.
comes on and sings Maggie's Farm. So clearly you're talking about breaking the chains, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it's like this is truly the moment where he has the energy burst of I am going to now transform in front of everybody. It's going to happen on stage. You're going to witness it. You're going to witness the birth of a new person, and he starts with Maggie's Farm. He declares it. He tells everybody, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. And he's shouting it, to the rooftops, to the crowd. And it's electric, and the drums and the electric guitar are going, right? And you just feel that energy. It's just incredible. It's beautiful. And then of course it ends, and I wanted to bring it to then you have the real finale moment of the movie, which is the song Like a Rolling Stone. Because the opening song of that set is Maggie's Farm, where he's declaring, I'm going to be a rebel, I'm going to change now. The middle song is almost like a little interlude where you can cut to a movie scene where the song itself is not as important. That's the whole big set piece where Pete Seeger, they try to almost shut down the speakers and the sound, and first it's the head of the committee goes up and he shouts, and then of course Pete Seeger eventually kind of starts to break. And I thought about he has like a Jack Nicholson in The Shining moment where he looks at the axe and he's about to go crazy. He's like, am I about to turn into Jack Nicholson in The Shining, and axe down these electrical cords, And then his wife steps in and it's like, okay, he has a moment of clarity and sanity. Like, I can't truly lose my mind. But honestly, he's pushed to the brink of insanity pretty much. It's like the dream that he saw happen at the midpoint of the film has now he's witnessing the downfall. So it's like the blessing and the curse of you got to see your dream, but you also got to see it kind of become your nightmare. And so this is the moment where it's like Pete is not going to cut the cord to the sound, and the tension kind of loosens. That's like it loosens just enough, and he gets to finish his set. And what is the song? It's his most famous song. It's the most important song in Dylan's career. And it's the most important song for the film because it's the title of the film. And what is this song? This is the complete transformation. What I realized is this is the ultimate moment of transformation where now this is the moment of birth of the new Dylan. And it's that song, because that song is like a turning point where he can never go back to the previous Dylan now, because he has written Like a Rolling Stone and he's released that song. And that song was such a defining turning point to signify a new chapter of his career and his life and his mentality and society and the future of popular music. That becomes this incredibly dense kind of moment of energy transformation, and he becomes Bob Dylan. And that's when I'm Batman. I'm Bob Dylan. Who am I, Greg? I'm Bob Dylan. I'm a rock star. Like, no one defines me. I
I
set the
am Bob
terms. I control the
motherfucking Dylan.
culture. Exactly. I control the culture. I say what's cool. I do what I want. Like, I comment on other people. And that song, Like a Rolling Stone, it's a song where he's kind of, again, he's taking this position of like, he's elevating himself. He's putting himself above. He has this God's eye point of view, because he's talking about a rich person who has become poor. We were once high and now we are low. And, you were once rich and now you're in rags. And then he says, how does it feel? How does it feel to,
How does it
right?
feel
So yeah, what are the words? To not have a
to
home.
be without a
Right, to be without a home.
home?
How does it feel to be without a home, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone?
With no direction home.
So he's asking the question, how does it feel? He doesn't feel that way. I think at that moment, he has truly found himself. And I think there's a beautiful kind of irony to the idea of him singing a song addressed to somebody who doesn't know who they are. how does it feel to be without a home, a complete unknown, like a Rolling Stone? How does that feel? Because I don't know how that feels because I have found myself.
Okay, okay. But let me potentially, and this could be interesting. We might have an interesting conversation here. What if he's singing that song to himself? Because you look at him. I love the way that you look at him. You look at him as alpha male who's figured it all out. I think he's small, insecure kid who's faking everything. And that's why I think he hides behind not answering questions. And I think that's why he hides behind his mannerisms and his weirdness and he crosses his legs and does this and that. I think he is the most non-alpha male, but he's fantastic with words and he's really good at going, I can just deflect any question people come after me because nobody really pushes me on anything. And he's able to do that. So I think he's singing that song to himself.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's great. I love that interpretation too, because I feel like all stories are essentially a reflection of the inner self. That's why, like I said, like Cash is almost like this specter. Like he's like what Dylan wants to be. He's what Dylan is heading towards. Pete Seeger is what Dylan doesn't want to be. He's what Dylan is leaving behind. So both of those characters are like fragments of Dylan's mind, or like they are reflections of Dylan himself. It's really an entire movie populated by all versions of Dylan, what he wants to be, doesn't want to be. But I'm not sure. I mean, but he's singing, you know, how does it feel to be without a home, a complete unknown? Yes, he's quote unquote finding himself, but part of finding himself is this idea that he is constantly changing. So he is the Rolling Stone. He is like a Rolling Stone. So maybe you're right. He's singing to himself in the sense of he realizes he's found this new place. He's constantly moving. And how does it feel now to realize that you'll never stop? You'll never be in one place. You'll always be changing. But also, to me, Bob Dylan really did have this genuine like detachment where he saw the world from this heightened point of view, where it is like a God's eye point of view, where it's like he understood what was truly important. So many of his songs are about how humanity is kind of failing and making mistakes. You know, it's about like the flaw, you know, in us, and this kind of how we're kind of repeating the mistake. And so many of his songs have this almost like warning where it's like the hard rains are going to fall, you know, like watch out, like if you know, it's coming. It's like he sees it from this larger point of view.
I get what you're trying to say there, and I could see it from your perspective, but I think it comes out of insecurities from them, and I think it comes from them going, if I inserted myself into this issue, they go, wow, you guys are saying all that shit about me? That's so cool. If I insert myself into this, I will burst the bubble. And they're going, for either your benefit or for mine, I'm not going to jump back in there and allow myself to burst that bubble because so many different people have different views about me. And I'm going to let you guys have that.
I mean, honestly, how many people have achieved what Bob Dylan achieved in the set, you know?
Well, yeah, now we're changing the conversation.
You know what I mean? No,
yeah,
no, but my point is that there is something genuinely special about this person. You know what I mean?
Which is why I think he does not want to insert himself to defining his characteristics. He doesn't, when everyone goes, I want to pit you into a corner, he goes, there's so many people who've tied themselves to me who feel this about me or this about me or this about me. And he goes, I don't want to burst any of their bubbles. So when you go, hey, Bob, are you this or are you that? He goes, I don't want to betray my former self or the way that people think about me in any way. And I don't want to hurt any of them. Let them feel what they want to feel. So I'm not going to define myself. Let them define me. I'm going to back out here and I'm going to have my own life and I'm going to do my own things.
Yeah, like when Joan Baez says like you won, you know, like let it go, you won, and he thinks he's smarter. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and he says, "What did I win, Joan?" And she doesn't take his question as this kind of rhetorical, you know, sort of clever retort. She's like actually answers the question and says, "You won your freedom." You know, she's like, "You won your freedom. Now you don't have to listen to what we want. Isn't that what you wanted?"
I think, all right, so there's a big there's a big thing that might be missed there. I think there's a huge turning point when he says, "What did I win, Joan?" I think he's actually being open and honest, going, in that moment, he's being truly vulnerable within the character, within the movie. He's literally going like, I don't see what I want. I think I burned everything down and I don't know what my next thing is except to ride off on this motorcycle. And he still goes and has the moment where he rides out there to look at what he's destroyed and then goes, I don't know where the fuck I'm going right now. And it's just going into the next stage of Act 2, but he doesn't know where Act 2 is going. He's looking to her for the answer. It's not him going, it's not him being quibbish, going like, yeah, bitch, what did I win? He's going,
right.
No, please tell me the answer, because I don't know what I've done. I in a biblical way, like, he does not know what he's done.
There is this sense of like, he's not satisfied. Like, he fights. He's trying to be himself. He's you know, rebelling. He's ignoring everybody.
Joker. If I'm just chasing and chasing it, and if I could catch it, I wouldn't even know. I don't even know what I'm after.
Yes, exactly. And I think, though, I will say that I think the feeling that I get is he is after himself. You know, he is after it. It's actually reflected in the movie earlier when they talk about, you know, Betty Davis, quote unquote, found herself. He says, no, she just changed into something else. That idea of like, quote unquote, finding yourself. Who are you? The identity, a complete unknown, the transformation, all of that ties together in that moment. You're right, because he has this feeling almost like, but I'm not done yet. I haven't achieved my goal yet. Like, I still have far more to do, and I don't even know what it is. I kept thinking of the word home. I haven't gone home yet, right? I'm not home yet. When I watched the No Direction Home documentary, that word home kept coming back. Dylan would talk about that, where I think they asked him, like, what's the goal of your career or whatever. He said, I'm just trying to go home. And again, that's another one of those answers that has this almost like kind of spiritual mystery to it, where it's like, is he talking about heaven? Is he talking about a spiritual home? Is he talking about, like, what is he talking about? It's like in Wizard of Oz, you know, find my way back home.
It's
the
this
inner
home.
self. Yeah, the inner self, the home inside of your heart, the home inside of, it's like,
he's looking for peace.
Right, exactly.
When he sings song to Woody within the context of the movie, and Woody bangs and gives him the admiration, and bangs against the bang, 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 and he looks up to him with his head down. He kind of looks up to him and goes, I got your admiration. I got the best I'm ever going to get out of you. And I find it so interesting that they juxtapose that with the ending of the movie. When he's sitting there looking out the window, and he's sitting there hanging out with him, and he's like, yep, I got it. And we got it. And we got the best this is ever going to be. And he goes, it's over. And he hands it back to him, and they look at each other, and they have that moment. Like, that's such a good ending to that movie. It's such a good ending of going like, we both understand that this is done. And this is the passing of the torch, this and that. And they both go, there's no passing of this torch. They're like, this is over. And then it's just nice to see him right away. And for some reason, it doesn't make sense out of context, because Woody's never been able to stand or move or whatever, but somehow he's able to stand and move to the window and then look out and see him through the bars, and you get the metaphor of him driving away. I do love the juxtaposition of sound when it comes to the and then
the sound is great. How the sound rises up. And I noticed too in that scene, I don't know if this is if I'm pulling like maybe too much, but the last shot of the bars I thought was the same as, like, it's like a parallel with the scene of Sylvie. He says goodbye to Sylvie through the fence that has the crisscross kind of bars.
Oh, that's good. I never picked it up.
And then the goodbye to Woody has like a little parallel where then it's also through the bars. It's not, the whole interaction isn't through the bars, but the last shot is through the bars. So there's almost like this.
Yeah, they like this through and they share the cigarette.
Yeah, it's like
through,
he's inaccessible. Like no one will ever know who he really is. Everybody's always on the other side of the bars, kind of, you know.
But that to me brings back to the question: will he, within the context of the movie, will he ever know who he is?
Well, okay. To me, what was so exciting about that ending is that I know what happens next, which is the motorcycle accident. When he was asked about it, he says that motorcycle accident was a moment of transfiguration. He said it was transfiguration You can go and learn about it from the Catholic Church. You can learn about it in some old mystical books, but it's a real concept. Transfiguration. So the idea of like, you change into something else. In religious terms, they say it's a miraculous transformation of Jesus where his appearance was glorified, revealing his divine nature. So in biblical terms, it's when his divine nature is revealed, okay? And here's what's interesting about this movie. They do have the moment, which is one of the most famous moments of Dylan's life, which is when he does go electric and someone in the crowd shouts Judas. So that's a real
within
thing
the
that
movie,
happened.
yes, because that also happened in Europe.
It happened different, yes, but the idea
within the context of the movie,
yes. But what's honest about that is the idea of the arc that he goes from the quote Jesus figure, the savior of folk music. He goes from the savior to the betrayer, to the traitor, he goes from Jesus to Judas. And that's also
I don't believe
yes. Right. But exactly. And even that, he says, no, I disagree. Like, I don't think that. You think that. Even that, it's like he rejects everything. He's like, I get to decide what I am. You don't get to tell me. But what the audience is experiencing, the arc of his life from the outside is that arc. And it has this kind of, yes, it does have a kind of almost religious sort of overtone to it.
This episode is brought to you by Dusty's Towing and Recovery, proudly serving the greater Pawnee County of Nebraska and the 2 paved roads that run through it. Whether your truck gave out in a dirt road in the middle of a cornfield or you accidentally drove your cousin's 4-wheeler into a pond again, Dusty has you covered. Flat tires, dead batteries, mysterious rattling sounds that started after you hit something, but you're not sure what. Dusty doesn't judge. He just tows. And if you mention promo code Greg and Andrew, that's GREGANDANDREW. Now, just putting this out there, he should have done it the other way. The name of our podcast is Andrew and Greg. I told him that, but just so everyone knows, specifically the promo code, if you're in the Pawnee County area of Nebraska, just know that it's not the name of our podcast. It's GREGANDANDREW. You'll get a free can of Mr. Pibb while you wait for the winch. Dusty's Towing and Recovery. If you're stuck, we'll get you unstuck. Eventually, depending on what Dusty's doing. And then at the end of that, he wrote, truck door slams, faint dog bark, ad ends. So I think he's expecting us to put sound effects in there, but he's not paying us for this, so this is just kind of going out there into the void.
Okay.
If you guys sign up, the people from the greater Pawnee County of Nebraska, like it's a very small.
Right. This is a localized ad.
This is a localized ad. But if you guys go out there and support us and do whatever, I will make sure that I make my next ad read for free for him, and we will do the truck door slam faint dog bark before the ad ends. But Dusty, cool. We're seeing how this goes, and we thank you very much for supporting us as our first ad read copy sponsor.
Yeah. Thank you, Dusty, whoever that is. That's why I think we both said we want to see the next movie. It's like Complete Unknown 2. Let's see it, right? Because
are you on the same thing? We would love if 10 years from now, Timothée Chalamet came back and they said, "Hey, we're doing part 2." And
amazing. I feel like there's still yet, as good as this movie is, there's still yet another Bob Dylan movie to be made. I think after he dies. I think that will be the moment when you can now go back and tell the full story. Because this movie, I think one of the things that's so brilliant about it and that I love about it is also, in a way, its weakness, which is it's one chapter of Dylan's life. This is not actually a Bob Dylan biopic. And I think that's one of the things that kind of threw me a little bit when I first saw it. I mean, I had a sense of like Chalamet is quite young. He's not going to play Bob Dylan when he's older. But just seeing the movie and just,
but he should, he should 10 years from now.
I said that, I said that to you. I said I want to do like a before sunrise, before sunset, where they come back.
That was going to be my next pick. That was going to be my next pick.
They want, anyway. Come back. I really, to watch an old, a 40-year-old Timothée Chalamet with white makeup and with a cowboy hat,
The giant hat, yeah.
singing those 1975, songs like that era of his life and going deeper into the next chapter. I mean, as a Dylan fan, I love that so much. I want to see that. Like when this movie ends, I'm like, but then he's gonna get into the motorcycle crash.
It's just beginning.
It's like,
it's like the movie itself, instead of being 3 act structure, the movie itself is the first act.
The movie, yes, that's an amazing way to put it. Yes. And what happens at the end of this film, it becomes a turning point in his life. So this is like act 1 of his life. I think it would really work, honestly. I actually think it should happen. I hope that happens.
In the way that you just said, Richard Linklater, like they could do this every 10 years and you could just do it.
Yeah. Tell Dylan's whole life. I mean, yeah, hey, that's what I love so much about cinema right now is that, and this is a very modern movie, I feel like cinema history is always being written. Brand new movies come out and you think, oh, this is some new movie of the week, whatever. No, sometimes these movies actually are very important and they have like a ripple effect throughout cinema and it changes the course of cinema. We're in such an exciting period for movies right now. And yeah, if James Mangold decides 10 years from now, let me get a 40-year-old Timothée Chalamet to do a sequel to this, I mean, why not, right? That would be an incredible cinematic project.
So can I ask you about this? Because I always find this interesting. We like these anti-hero type people like Dylan or whatever, who just want to express themselves and do their own thing. But for some reason, the people that we all know, he kept getting up there and he's still doing it to this day. For the past 60 years, he's gone up there to express himself in front of other human beings. Vastly different than just somebody sitting there and just writing down all their thoughts on a piece of paper to get it out, or just sitting there and meditating and thinking about it. There's something about him that needs to exercise this out there in front of an audience to at least present these ideas to another human being or a group of human beings, to then go, okay, I've at least put it out there. Now it's off me. It's now on you. Whatever you think about it.
Yeah.
And then his whole thing has ever been, if you bring it back to him going, explain yourself, explain it, he goes, turtle shell. I'm never going to explain. Go away, go away. I gave it to you. Take it or don't take it, but I'm never going to explain it. And I'm never going to be your messiah, and I'm never going to be your whatever. But I did my job. My job was to throw it out there. My job is not to explain it. And that's been the interesting thing that I find out. But the certain people that I like who express art forms are the people who go, I have no more energy for this. I gave it out. My job was to make it and put it there. I'm not going to sit here and explain the thing. Do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the things that's so fascinating about him is that while he might be Jesus-like, he's not Jesus. The movie is like framing it as he is this God figure. And I think that's what's so interesting about the film is it ties again into the title, A Complete Unknown. Who is he? The movie kind of gives you this wink of like, he's this sort of spiritual force, we don't know who he is. And, but the fascinating thing about him is that it's almost like, again, he wears the image of Jesus on his shoulders like a costume, like just another character or another performance. It's just another shade of who he is, because he does have this prophetic kind of almost otherworldly biblical sort of energy about him.
I take it in the aspect of Orson Welles going, I'm a charlatan.
And Dylan has that famous quote where they ask him, are you a poet or a prophet? And he says, I'm a song and dance man. I like to think of myself as a song and dance man. That's the
exact same way of Orson Welles going, I'm a charlatan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a magician.
So song and dance man is
faking
like,
all of you.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm actually not very serious at all. It's like, I'm just kind of a joke. You guys don't even realize it yet.
The joke is on all of you people for bringing more importance to what I'm doing than the surface level of my songs. My songs are here. You take from them what you will, and what you take from them, like imagine there being a ceiling on each one of his songs, and he's like, there's nowhere else to go. There's just, I give the songs and it bounces off the top, and what you take from them is what you take from them. And that is the thing. There is not a ceiling to bust through to then go, now I understand some other level. He's going, these came from me, and what you take from them is the meaning. There's not a meaning from me. I gave it. I vomited it out. If you take importance from those words, that is the importance of the song. And I think that is the ultimate message of what he's saying, is he's going, when he looks back and he goes at his former self going like, yeah, I can't do that anymore because I felt those things and these are the things that came out of me and other people resonated and still other people can resonate to this day from those things. But you can't break through the top level of the ceiling because there is no further upwards to go, hey, is there religious? Is there this? Is there that? He's going, no. It came from my thoughts as a human feeling these things, and other humans feel these things, but they do it in their own way. The emotion that Bob Dylan captured of the feeling of certain aspects of life, that's kind of the way that you're trying to say it. He encapsulated feelings in words that have a musical theme behind them that makes you feel a certain feeling, which is what movies try to do. They just take 90 minutes and a song takes 3 minutes and a song can last longer or a movie can last longer. But what you're trying to say, I think what you're trying to say is an encapsulated feeling came from a person who wrote certain lyrics and put certain musical tones behind them and then made you feel something so deep that you go, this person must be a messiah or must be a god, or I must find a reason of why I'm able to feel these feelings from this thing that another human being created.
This is Mr. Tambourine Man, okay? Take me disappearing through the smoke rings of my mind.
Of your mind. Down the foggy ruins of time.
Far past the
frozen
okay, you're
leaves,
messing me up.
the haunted, frightened trees, down to the wispy. Oh,
The
dude,
out to the windy beach, out to the windy beach, far from the twisted reach of crazy sorrow. Yes, to dance beneath the diamond sky,
with
one hand waving
beneath.
free, silhouetted by the sea, circled by the circus sands, with all memory and fate driven deep beneath the waves. Let me forget about today until tomorrow. Yeah. So
it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite songs. I used to go running to that song. I used to have it on my little cassette tape, and it was the closest I got to feeling religious in the way of going, somebody else understands me, and there is a Puff the Magic Dragon way of looking at life, of going like, somebody else is out there and gets it. But I now look at that as just going like, a human being was able to so perfectly express certain feelings that made them feel life, and it goes beyond those circuit sands where 100 years from now, if somebody listens to that song and they're in any semi way of understanding life, they will go, oh, I get that too. This makes me feel really nice and really good.
And I think it's awesome that the movie came out and it does have this young star who's very popular with the current generation, and he embodies this older pop icon and brings him back again. I do think that Chalamet, that the star power of Chalamet also helped to bring Bob Dylan back into the culture again. That was really cool to see.
I think it did, but I didn't talk to any young people who really resonated. Did you?
I mean, yeah, lots of articles written about Dylan, people kind of revisiting
I saw articles
Dylan's
and
work.
things, but I didn't talk to any younger people who gave a shit.
Okay. How many young people do you talk to?
I talked to a 26-year-old.
Are you mingling with the youth, Greg?
I talked to a 26-year-old and I was like, oh, do you like this Chalamet? And she was like, no, I don't care. And I was like, okay, well, it's a very small pool. One person I talked to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it did have a cultural relevance. I mean, to me, the ultimate cultural relevant moment was the Saturday Night Live appearance where he came on and he sang, a few Bob Dylan songs as Timothée Chalamet. It was almost
That
like
was
the
good.
blurring,
You're
the
right.
blurring of of like actor, rock star, Dylan, like they're all kind of blurred together. He didn't sing them the way he sang them in the movie. He sang them basically as Timothée Chalamet, like almost becoming a rock star in his own right. So yeah, I think that had a kind of cultural, just a coolness. I don't know if it's like that much of an impact, quote unquote.
I think it elevated him. Did it elevate Bob Dylan into
Yeah,
the
I think
consciousness
it
of the
did
youth?
elevate. I think in the modern day, yes, in the TikTok era, the TikTok generation, I think it did. It kind of brought Bob Dylan into the TikTok generation, I would say.
I hope it did. I
Yeah,
just don't see,
I hope so
as of
too.
speaking to the 126-year-old,
Yeah,
I
I hope
didn't
so
see
too.
the ripples.
The reason I said it, I've been looking forward to this movie my whole life is I love I love kind of biopics in general. Music biopics, I just love music biopics. I mean, you get to hear the music of that artist. There's just something so fun and cool about seeing a new actor embody this, iconic figure that we know, whether it's Val Kilmer as Jim Morrison or, Joaquin Phoenix doing Johnny Cash, or if it's Chalamet as Dylan. Like, that's cool and fun. It's like you get to kind of merge these celebrity figures together. And I do think it kind of helps to keep these older figures relevant in the modern day.
If anyone made it this far, I would be
Yeah, seriously.
surprised.
I know,
The
for
only people
episode
who make
one.
it this far are going to be super fans for like 60 episodes in
Yeah,
who go back
yeah,
and go, what did they do as their first episode? Let me
yeah.
see what happened.
What's your pick for next week, Greg?
I forgot.
You forget?
I already told you.
Wow. Okay, ready?
You sent
Can I
me.
give people a hint?
What is it?
Bana.
Jaws. Jaws. It's looking up. Sorry. It's a
Bana.
shark looking up. The next one was
Bum, bum,
looking
bum,
right
bum,
or
bum, bum, bum,
down. I
bum,
can't
bum,
remember
bum,
next to
bum,
it.
bum, bum.
Yeah, we're Jaws. We're Spielberg. All right. We got to cut it before I. All right. We love you all.
Talk to you next week, man.
I'm the break in the flicker, the cut in the edit, the blade through the credits, a frame they embedded. Light in the distance, persistence poetic. The dark is a prison, I brighten with aesthetic. No stunt doubles, I tumble through trap fights. The scripts in my soul, I control when my track spikes. Whisper in a reel, I reveal with the black light. The dark is a canvas that I carve with the flashlight. Call it a war cry, a cinematic spark. A puzzle in the shadows, a code of the art. It's Andrew and Greg and the legacy embarks. Our voices ignite and we light up the dark.
I was excited to see that movie that came out. I saw it right away in the theater. I went to the theater by myself.
Because we weren't friends.
Yeah, that's how much of a dork I am. And I thought Kate Blanchett.
First of all, wait, I gotta cut you off
away.
there. That's not dorkish to go to a movie by yourself. I've gone to like 300 movies by myself.
Yeah. See, that's
Just
why
saying.
that's why we're doing a podcast together, because you're like, I'm in the same boat.